A very good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 9th edition of the World City Summit. And for many of you, welcome to Singapore. My name is Magdalene C, and it is my absolute honor to be your MC for this morning's opening plenary. The World Cities Summit serves as an important global platform for government and business leaders, as well as urban experts across the globe, to discuss livable and sustainable city challenges, to share integrated urban solutions, and to forge new partnerships. Jointly organized by Singapore's Centre for Livable Cities and the Urban Redevelopment Authority, World Cities Summit 2024 revolves around the theme of livable and sustainable cities. Rejuvenate, reinvent, reimagine. We aim to expand the discourse on opportunities and solutions for the development of smart, resilient, and community-centric communities. To kick things off this morning, please join me in welcoming on stage Singapore's Minister for National Development and Minister in charge of Social Services Integration, Mr. Desmond Lee, to deliver the opening address. Minister Lee, please.
Deputy Prime Minister Heng Keat, ministers, secretaries, governors, mayors, heads of cities, city councils, excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to everyone and welcome to the World City Summit. I trust that many of you have had a good flight to Singapore and have settled down well. It is indeed our privilege and honor to be the host for the summit this year. I hope also that you've had some time to explore our city and its attractions. Nothing is very far from where you are. In fact, we just launched I Light Singapore at Marina Bay last Friday. And I Light Marina Bay, or I Light Singapore, features light installations by artists from 11 different countries, and they also host other events. So I invite you to visit if you have some time in the evening. Just yesterday, I welcomed mayors and city leaders from 96 cities from almost every continent on the planet at the Mayors Forum. More of you have joined us today, and I look forward to our discussions and exchanges throughout the course of the World City Summit. This year marks our 9th edition of the World City Summit. At our last summit in 2022, we discussed how cities can remain resilient and emerge stronger from periods of crises and disruptions. Back then, many of us were still grappling with the effects of COVID-19. The situation has stabilized, yet other crises have emerged. Geopolitical conflict and tensions have intensified, impacting international relations, supply chain certainty, and of course, many of our economies. At the same time, we need to manage the complexities of longer-term trends and challenges, such as increasing urbanization and climate change. Amidst these challenges, how can we rejuvenate our cities so that they remain livable for city dwellers, both today and in the future? And how can we apply these lessons and insights to designing new cities and urban centers? This is what we hope to discuss at this year's World City Summit, which we've themed Livable and Sustainable Cities, Rejuvenate, Reinvent, Reimagine. Later on, our Deputy Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Heng Keat, will speak about the trends and challenges that cities across the world face, as well as guiding principles that may help us navigate the future and seize opportunities ahead. After that, we'll hear from an esteemed panel of ministers, mayors, and city leaders from all over the world, as well as experts from academia and the private sector. They will discuss how we can continue to drive growth in our cities amidst the challenges ahead while ensuring sustainability and inclusivity. Beyond this opening plenary, we have an exciting series of other plenaries and deep dive sessions with academics and industry experts, government leaders, and many others. These are organized according to our 5 thematic tracks for the summit: cities for people, resilient and regenerative cities, smart cities, sustainable financing of cities, and future cities. I hope that all of you will be able to make full use of the opportunities at this summit to learn more about the exemplary work that each of us here from different cities and different countries and regions are doing, and to take back insights and ideas and lessons that we can apply back in our own cities. In the spirit of encouraging learning across borders, today I would like to take this opportunity to announce the updated Singapore Livability Framework. This can be found in our new e-publication titled Building Livable and Sustainable Cities, a Framework for the Future. We first developed our livability framework more than 10 years ago. It distilled key insights and lessons from Singapore's urban transformation since our independence in 1965. It has served as a useful reference for city planners and policymakers, both in Singapore and in other countries. In fact, we often use it as a teaching tool for our programs for both local and foreign city leaders. Things we've done well, things we've not done well, and the lessons that we've learned. Over time, the issues that cities around the world face have grown more complex, and our understanding of livability has evolved too. That is why we reviewed the framework, incorporating current and emerging perceptions of livability from city leaders and experts from around the world, as well as from members of the public. Our revised framework reflects an expanded understanding of what constitutes a livable city, as well as an updated set of recommendations to achieve it. We have also compiled many examples of good practices by leading cities across the world. This is Singapore's small contribution to the global discourse on urban sustainability and livability, and we hope that this refreshed livability framework will provide useful insights and lessons to support the growth of cities globally for the benefit of current and future citizens. Beyond learning from one another, we also recognize the need to foster greater dialogue, closer partnerships, and deeper collaboration across cities. We all face common challenges across the planet. This is how we are able to forge common consensus in dealing with challenges ahead, many of which are transborder in nature. So this year, we are excited to launch the City Network for the Lee Kuan Yew World City Prize. This will be a community of practice for urban leaders and practitioners to collaborate on various projects while providing opportunities to shape global dialogue on important urban issues. At the same time, it will foster deeper partnerships across cities and enable knowledge sharing and capability building within the network. To date, the Lee Kuan Yew World City Prize has recognized 7 laureate cities and 20 special mention cities. They have demonstrated good governance, innovation, and foresight in tackling the challenges that they face. I'm glad that the 7 laureate cities have agreed to come forward as founding members for this network. I also welcome the 20 special mention cities to be part of this initiative. Collectively, these cities come from different continents and backgrounds and offer a rich source of knowledge and experience in dealing with a broad range of urban issues. To foster excellence in urban planning and policy in cities across the world, we will in the future invite selected cities to join the network too, and I invite you to join us. In this network, Singapore will work with member cities to embark on a variety of multi-city projects. Potential projects might include joint research and pilots on sustainable urban rejuvenation, and publications on approaches on various issues, such as providing quality and affordable housing. We hope such initiatives will not only enable cities to tackle current and future urban challenges, but also build strong intercity relationships across different levels: governors, mayors, city halls, planning departments, and knowledge organizations. We will hold our inaugural Knowledge Forum with founding members of this network today, and I look forward to our exchange today to kickstart this initiative, an initiative of action. The challenges of the future may be daunting, yet they also present opportunities for us to rejuvenate, to reinvent, and reimagine our cities. So let's continue to seize them so that we can build more livable and sustainable cities for current and future city dwellers. So on that note, we look forward to an exciting plenary today and a full day chock full of activities and events for all of us to participate. So thank you, and I hope everyone will have a fruitful experience at the 9th World City Summit, and please enjoy our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Lee. And now it is my great honor to invite Singapore's Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Heng Swee Keat, on stage to deliver a special address. DPM Heng, please.
Ministers and Mayors, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. I'm delighted to join you at this opening plenary of the 9th World City Summit. We held the inaugural World Cities Summit in 2008. Since then, it has grown into a global platform for city leaders, industry experts, and other partners to exchange ideas and foster partnerships. This year, we are joined by friends from more than 96 cities around the world to exchange views on the future of urbanization. So let me join Desmond to extend a very warm welcome to all of you to Singapore, especially those of you who are joining us for the first time. This diverse group gathered here from across continents underscores the important role that cities play in shaping a better, greener, and healthier future. So I encourage all of you to make the most of the next 2 days to engage in meaningful discussions with one another. Since the turn of the century, the trend of urbanization has accelerated globally. More than half of the world's population currently lives in cities. This is projected to grow further to almost 70% by 2050. Not only will we have more cities in the years ahead, our cities are also becoming bigger and more complex. In the year 2000, 371 cities around the world had at least 1 million inhabitants. By 2030, this number is projected to exceed 700. In other words, almost doubling in just 3 decades. When I grew up in Singapore in the 1960s and 70s, our population was roughly around 2 million, and our GDP per capita was approximately $500. Today, our population stands at around 6 million, with a GDP per capita of over 80,000 US. Now, many cities, including many of the cities that you come from around the world, had similar experiences of economies growing more vibrant, populations becoming larger and more cosmopolitan, and standards of living rising. Now, this speaks to both the advantages and challenges of cities. Advantages because cities have historically been enablers of economic development and cultural development. For centuries, people have been drawn to cities for greater economic and social opportunities, and ultimately, better lives and livelihoods for themselves, their families, and future generations. Cities have attracted talent, catalyzed technological change, and driven higher productivity level and growth. Cities enjoy what economists call the economics of agglomeration. where a critical mass of talent, ideas, and capital make connections and to enable growth and innovation. But at the same time, cities have challenges too. Crime, congestion, overpopulation, pollution, homelessness, and a loss of a sense of connection in a big, nameless place. So cities must continually evolve with the times to keep empowering human aspirations and uplift their peoples. Cities need good hard infrastructure, buildings, roads, ports, and airports to enhance connectivity and connections, enhance connectivity and convenience. And equally, cities need soft infrastructure for people to form social connections and build a sense of community and identity. Both these dimensions are vital in keeping cities buzzing, dynamic, and cohesive. Now, Singapore is both a city and a country. As a city, we face the same constraints and challenges that all cities around the world face. As a country, our challenges are even greater. We need to provide for a wide range of facilities and needs, including in defense and in water reservoirs and so on. So how can we pursue growth so that it is environmentally sustainable and socially equitable? And as our people age and as the aspirations change, how can we support our people and our seniors to not only live longer, but to lead more healthy and fulfilling lives, whatever their age? Now, these are some of the key questions that make the theme of this year's World Cities Summit: livable and sustainable cities, rejuvenate, reinvent, reimagine, both timely and important. The opening plenary in particular will discuss how we can achieve smart, resilient, and regenerative cities. Now, this is especially critical in the face of two common challenges: climate change and aging demographics. In Singapore, our third climate change study released in January this year projected intensifying urban heat, more wet and dry weather extremes, and rising mean sea levels. In fact, our coolest month now is hotter than our warmest month in the 1960s. We're also on our way to becoming a super-aged society. In 2020, about 1 in 6 Singaporeans was aged 65 and above. By 2030, just 6 years away, it will be almost 1 in 4 Singaporeans. These two factors, a changing climate and an aging population, have many implications for us and for many cities worldwide. This will change the way our cities and societies function, our economies and workforces, our supply chains, our healthcare systems, and our priorities for public finance. But challenges are also opportunities. Cities, with their vibrancy and dynamism, can serve as problem solvers and pathfinders for a better future. Innovation is central to how cities transform ourselves for the future. To enhance our livability and sustainability, cities must take a long-term view, engage citizens and stakeholders to try out novel solutions. How can we take this long-term view and best harness innovation to make our cities smarter, more resilient, and more regenerative? Now, allow me to suggest 3 guiding principles. First, in taking a long-term view, we must empower innovation by investing more deliberately in research, science, and technology. To address complex challenges like climate change and an aging population, we must tap on innovation built on a strong base of basic research. In particular, interdisciplinary R&D that brings together different stakeholders across academia, governments, and industry can identify the different dimensions of an issue and address it in a holistic, comprehensive way. As urban centers with dense networks of talents, expertise, and resources, cities are well placed to leverage the power of innovation to build a more livable and sustainable future. In Singapore, the government has committed $28 billion to our Research, Innovation and Enterprise 2025 or RIE 2025 Master Plan. Under RIE 2025, the Cities of Tomorrow R&D program supports research projects in the urban solutions and sustainability domain. We support research in areas such as livability and healthy cities. For example, our Agency for Science, Technology and Research, or A*STAR, is leading a project to study the interactions between our built environment and mental well-being. To better understand the direct and indirect relationship between our built environment and mental health, the study will examine factors such as urban design features, density, human behaviors, and mental well-being. The evidence-based insights gleaned from this study will serve to better inform the way that we rejuvenate, reinvent, and reimagine our city-state. We're also deepening our research and knowledge in areas like low-carbon energy solutions, novel foods like alternative proteins, and deploying technologies to make our built environment more sustainable and senior-friendly. This aligns with our wider aims of achieving net zero emissions by 2050, strengthening our food security, and making our city more livable across segments of our population. Alongside A*STAR's research institutes, our universities are also building up capabilities in these areas. For example, the Singapore University of Technology and Design, or SUTD, houses the Lee Kuan Yew Centre for Innovative Cities, named after our founding Prime Minister, who had a keen interest in smart urban planning. The centre is undertaking research on aging urbanism to better understand older residents' needs and work with partners to develop innovative designs and solutions to meet these needs. The Singapore Management University has also set up an urban institute focusing on many important research areas like urban infrastructure and economic growth. Indeed, deploying innovation requires us to translate research capabilities into tangible, applied solutions. So this brings me to my second principle, that cities' investments in innovation must be anchored on people-centric impact. As leaders, we are charged with the responsibility of improving the lives of our peoples and future generations. The new knowledge we gain from science and research must therefore be channeled towards this purpose. For example, the Health District at Queenstown project in Singapore brings together multidisciplinary teams from government, academia, and the healthcare sector. Working together, these teams drive innovative pilot projects aimed at enhancing the health and well-being of residents, especially seniors, backed by research. Now, one example is therapeutic gardens, which use sensory plants to stimulate the senses and promote relaxations through scents, textures, and colors. In Singapore, we found that therapeutic horticulture benefits seniors in particular, reducing depression, enhancing social connectedness, and improving immunity and cognitive functions. Our National Parks Board, or NParks, and the Yeo Boon Kim Mind Science Centre at the National University of Singapore have distilled landscape characteristics with therapeutic effects. These have been translated into design guidelines, which NParks is partnering stakeholders and the community to implement in public housing districts like Queenstown, as well as parks island-wide. In addition to meeting the physical, social, and psychological needs of people using the gardens, such wellness landscapes also form part of the active aging amenities that promote healthy living and social interaction. Alongside such collaborations, civic participation, engaging residents who live, work, and play in these built environments also enhances livability. I started my career in the Singapore Police Force many years ago and learned early on how engaging and empowering the community leads to much better public safety and security. Mexico City, the winner of this year's Lee Kuan Yew World City Prize, provides a good example of how cities can engage communities inclusively on impactful interventions. 32% of Mexico City's population do not have sufficient water for basic needs. In response, the city implemented rainwater harvesting systems and, crucially, training programs for households to install, use, and maintain the system. To date, more than 62,000 rainwater harvesting systems have been installed, especially in economically disadvantaged areas that face water shortage. By engaging residents through the program, Mexico City has thus been able to improve the sustainability and security of water resources for vulnerable populations. Now, Minister Desmond Lee earlier mentioned how cities should learn from one another across borders. And this leads me to my third principle, that cities must build collaborations and partnerships to pursue innovations and impactful urban solutions. Singapore aspires to be a global Asia node of technology, innovation, and enterprise, partnering with innovative nodes around the world on responses to tackle shared challenges. In fact, this World City Summit caps off a series of gatherings that Singapore has hosted in the past week to bring the best minds together to work on complex problems. Just a few days ago, I spoke at Asia TechX Singapore, where we discussed how the digital revolution, and in particular artificial intelligence and quantum computing, can be harnessed to improve people's lives, including through developing smart cities. In the spirit of learning from one another, the Center for Livable Cities also works with the UN Habitat and other partners to organize capability development programs. This promotes peer-to-peer learning and a knowledge exchange between mayors, city leaders, and officials from around the world. Challenges like climate change are not confined to borders, so neither should their solutions. Cross-border collaboration will be crucial for cities to build a collective future of greater livability and sustainability. The Maritime and Ports Authority of Singapore, for example, has partnered the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach and signed a Memorandum of Understanding last year to establish a green and digital shipping corridor to decarbonize the maritime shipping industry and improve efficiency in operations. In April this year, a baseline study highlighted how the corridor could create more than 700 new jobs and improve air quality, thus resulting in both economic and health benefits for communities by working together. So let me conclude. The future for cities remains bright and promising. Realizing this potential will require us to work together to address shared challenges such as climate change and the changing demographics. Collaborative innovation, both within and among cities, will be fundamental to achieving this. To do so, we must invest more substantively in research, channel new insights into impactful solutions that can be applied, and build closer partnerships with one another. By working together, we can unleash innovation that enables transformation and shapes a better future for our peoples. So let me once again encourage all participants to make the most of this opportunity to exchange valuable insights and learn from one another. I wish you a fruitful and memorable World City Summit, and I hope that the conversations and discussions spark more innovative ways to explore synergies and shape a better future for our peoples. I hope that you also have some time to enjoy your stay in Singapore. And if there are areas that you feel that we can do better, please feel free to let us know. Thank you very much and enjoy your stay.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. We'd now like to invite you to remain on stage for a group photo opportunity. Come. And now we will proceed with the opening plenary. The opening plenary comprises of two segments. Firstly, a presentation by each of the panel speakers, followed by a panel discussion moderated by Dr. Nolene Hazer. Dr. Hazer previously served as the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations from 2007 to 2015. And during this period, she also served as the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific. And now I'd like to hand the time over to Dr. Nolene, please.
Thank you very much, Madam MC. Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. What a wonderful opening speeches we heard this morning that set this wonderful context to our conversation that we'll have this morning at the opening plenary. So it's my honor to moderate this opening plenary and to introduce our very distinguished panelists who are leaders from governments, different levels of governments, but also from academia and from the private sector. So let me, first of all, introduce Dato Swee Alexander Nanta Linggi, Minister of Works from Malaysia, Honorable Alice Wahome, who is the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development of Kenya, a big welcome. Federico Gutierrez, the Mayor of Medellin from Colombia, a big welcome to you. And Mr. Ernest Waller, President of the Provincial Parliament of Vienna, Austria, Professor Lily Kong, President of Singapore Management University, and Mr. Sean Chow, Group CEO of Sabana Jurong. So let me start by saying that the theme for the summit, livable and sustainable cities, rejuvenate, reinvent, reimagine, is most relevant today and a challenge to us all. We live, as we have heard, in a time of great transformation and is associated with technological advancement and growing opportunities, but also new dangers interacting with historical vulnerabilities. Now, our cities today, home to about 4.4 billion people, or 56% of the world's population, are significantly impacted by global disruptions, such as climate change, pandemics, economic crises, and may I add, conflicts and displacements that we're still struggling to address. But cities, as we have heard, projected to house 70% of the world's population by 2050, can also be centers of creativity and opportunities with tremendous capacity and power for evolution, adaptation, and transformation. So ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, we are at the crossroads of a breakdown or a breakthrough. The battle to prevent emerging climate catastrophe will likely be won or lost in our cities, dependent on achieving the goal of zero carbon emission by 2050 and protecting our climate's ecosystem for the survival of humanity. So today, our commitment to effective urban governance, to collaboration, to knowledge sharing and learning is more critical than ever to respond to specific needs and to govern our cities for social inclusion, sustainability, and resilience. So our panelists will now each take 5 minutes to share with us how they are rejuvenating, reinventing, and reimagining specific urban environments, taking into account the challenges and the opportunities faced by what I call the local global interactions. So let me first start by asking the first speaker, Dato Swee, Linggi, for you to make your first presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nolin. Well, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, just maybe let me begin by thanking the organizers for having Malaysia and myself in particular as Minister of Works for Malaysia, and everyone for joining us here today. And I'm truly honored to be given the opportunity to speak on this auspicious occasion. 5 minutes, Doctor, I think quite an injustice, I think, for this kind of a topic. But nevertheless, I'll just do my best. As the Minister of Works in Malaysia, my portfolio reckons my leadership to spearhead Malaysia's infrastructural development and construction industry. As the Ministry of Works is responsible for the execution of the infrastructural development and provide advisory services to the other technical agencies. And together with other Malaysian government ministries and agencies, Ministry of Work acts as one of the key ministries that are responsible to deliberate on policies that focuses on national infrastructure planning, quality, infrastructure development plan, well-planned connectivity between modes of transport to enhance mobility and provide seamless connectivity to facilities and amenities in the country. Of course, the post-pandemic era has left the world with an unprecedented circumstance on how to come back stronger from the Malaysia's tragedy. The solutions to challenges occurred in ensuring that focuses on the prosperity and well-being of all citizens. We have what we call Wawasan Kemakmuran Bersama 2020 under this present leadership of the Prime Minister, Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim, which simply means that the vision for prosperity, togetherness in prosperity in 2030. So moreover, as a developing nation, the Malaysian government has consistently embraced the sustainable development agenda by incorporating the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, to the Malaysia Plan strategies in an effort to attain the 2030 agenda. Now, this has been captured in the Total Planning Doctrine, which frames the values and principles within the planning and development structures. And here, mechanisms in Malaysia will be directed to translate into spatial context as described in the policy documents, such as what we have is National Physical Plan, the State Structure Plan, District or City Local Plan, and of course the resource allocation. And we have our Minister of Local Government here, probably in his time later on, will speak more on the local and city government. Yeah, the implementation of coordination and the control of the public and the private investments for development programs. So these are basically the policies that we have to adhere to. Now, the strategies and aspirations of contained in the Malaysia Plan are translated into the annual development budget and the National Physical Plan, which is currently in its 4th edition, what we call National Physical Plan for 4th edition. Now, Malaysia's plan, as probably many would know, that is a span of 5 years. Now, the NPP4 adopts the concept of comprehensive spatial ecosystem with emphasis on the optimal land use, economic development focus on key growth area, enhancing international or inter-regional connectivity through integrated networks and conservatives, and also preventions of ecological assets and agriculture as well. Now we have under what, in the matters of disaster resilient cities aspects, disaster resilient cities are, of course, a vital aspects of urban development, is what we all know about, especially in the countries prone to natural disasters, such as Malaysia. Due to its geographical location, Malaysia faces significant risk from, maybe not so much from earthquakes, even though we have tremors, but we do have problems with big flood cases and also landslides. Now, the key to disaster resilient cities is the strategic development plan of infrastructure. Now, in Malaysia, efforts are already underway to create disaster resilient cities. The adoption of the environmentally friendly drainage master plan, or what we call PISMA, PISMA, will be in the emphasis to address issues in the flood-prone urban areas. In this regard, the land use planning in state structure plans and local plans will be aligned with the PISMA towards improving the drainage system in the urban areas to reduce major flood occurrences. Now, the government has also implemented various initiatives and policies to enhance resilience at local level. Yeah? For example, Kuala Lumpur Hall has developed a disaster risk reduction strategic plan, which focuses on improving infrastructure, enhancing early warning systems, and promoting community participation. Now, the comprehensive and multifaceted approach entails upgrading crucial infrastructure to withstand potential disasters. Now, there's an investment in the resilient infrastructure. Early warning systems, including community engagement, are key to building a city's capacity to withstand and recover from disasters. By developing disasters resilient cities, Malaysia can be better protected. Better protect its population and infrastructure from the impacts of such events. Now, something that I cannot miss here is that there is what we call a National Construction Plan 2030, NCP 2030. Under the purview of my ministry, the National Construction Plan 2030 is a 10-year policy formulated to mirror the ministry's full commitment in facilitating sector players to become more agile and competitive in developing a sustainable infrastructure. Can I just have half a minute? The NCP 2030 is based on 6 strategic trusts. Trust 1, to elevate quality and safety in project performance. Trust 2, embrace sustainable built environment. And Trust 3, improves construction productivity. Trust 4 is strengthen infrastructure maintenance. Trust 5, internationalizations and competitiveness. And Trust 6, strengthening good governance and adoption of best practices.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll come back to some of the issues in our discussion later. Well, I think we were put to a challenge by our opening speakers by saying that we need sometimes to keep revising our frameworks for urban governance and development. So I would like to, in a way, ask a question to our next speaker by saying that one of the challenges that we have is to go even beyond the livable city into creating vibrant hubs of human activity where people can thrive together. So, Cabinet Minister, if you could take that over and challenge us to how you are doing it and how we can learn from that.
Thank you very much. Allow me to take this opportunity this morning to thank the organizer, the Minister for National Development, Desmond, for inviting me to this very great discussion on World Cities Summit. The discussion is very interesting for me and for my country. We are at a critical period where we want to be part of the global world in dealing with the challenges that come with the urbanization, growing population, and therefore to discuss the creation of cities that are both livable and sustainable. And it is very critical that we acknowledge efforts made worldwide to guarantee that urban settings are not merely livable, but also they are vibrant human hubs, vibrant hubs for human activity and advancement. And I therefore recognize that in our country, Kenya, this time, we have embarked on a journey of transformation aimed at ensuring that our urban centers are places that people can live in, thrive, and now and in the future, noting that their livelihoods, especially those who are vulnerable, are something that we must walk along with. First and foremost, governance has become critical in management of our urban centers, and therefore we are working on improving that. In our Kenyan context, there has been a concerted effort to enhance the structures at both national and sub-national level, ensuring that transparency, accountability of our instruments, and management is taken care of in decision-making. The introduction of devolution in Kenya since 2013, when we came up with a totally new constitution, gave us the opportunity to work afresh and look at the issues of governance, transparency, inclusivity, taking care of the human rights issues, even in development of our urban cities. The government of Kenya understands that sustainable urban development requires very careful planning, and my ministry is in charge of quality assurance and standards in terms of planning. And therefore, I am right at the center of that. Therefore, frameworks, legal frameworks and policies that will guide us have been developed. I will say that through these policies, especially the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, African Union Agenda 2063 is something we are taking seriously. East African Community, we have a Vision 2050, and we also have our Kenya Vision 2030 as important frameworks, including our financial MTP4, which then runs between 2023 and 2027. And of course, the current government has a bottom-up economic transformation agenda that we are applying in all our planning, meaning we are working from bottom, going up, so that we start with the very vulnerable, the very needy, from who live on either little or no income at all. And therefore, their sustainability is key. Development, therefore, in Kenya has looked at coming up with affordable housing program, a very big agenda for us, where we are dealing with social and affordable housing, enabling Kenyans who don't have homes to come up with homes, to buy homes that they will pay between 20 and 30 years. And the amount they pay per month is more or less basically less than what they have been paying in their very poor living homes. And therefore, we intend to improve their living standards. I want to go very quickly because I can see we are all constrained on, the panel is constrained on time. But we also have relied on partners. The World Bank has come in place and has supported our planning, our urban sensitization programs through Kenya Urban Support Program, where we are looking at having smart cities, ensuring that drainage works, ensuring that we train and build capacity of the urban center managers. That has become a very critical program. I see, of course, that we have other partners like UN Habitat, many UN agencies, and I know Maimuna would be happy to hear that she was doing a great job in Kenya under UN Habitat when she was running the organization as our CEO. Of course, and I see her here in this forum. Enhancing private sector engagement, supporting transition of refugee camps. Kenya has some of the biggest refugee camps maybe in the world, because especially Kakuma and Dadaab, they have over 500,000 people. We are now thinking of how to work with them through these programs where we have taken up the camps as part of our urban cities, and we have given them urban area status under my ministry so that they can benefit from the programs that we are coming up with. that of course allowing integration between the refugees and the communities. I therefore want to say that infrastructure for those kind of centers, because we don't have water, sufficient water, electricity, security lighting, high mass, all these are challenges that we are coming up with. And therefore, I want to say that looking at the whole sector, the whole urban area, the whole population aspect that is giving strain to the infrastructure, to the facilities, then it is important through this discussion that we discuss how to mobilize resources as a team, as cities, as countries, and as organizations that want to make a difference in the lives of our people, the vulnerable, leaving no one behind. Thank you very much for now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll pick up on some of the very important discussions in our conversation later on, especially on social housing. So let me now move to our third speaker, Mayor Federico, and we'll have to use the mic and the translation for our translation. Mayor, you were the 2016 LKY Prize Laureate for your major urban innovation and transition from a city of serious violence to one of the world's inclusive, green, and creative cities, and all within 2 decades. How did you do it? Your presentation.
Bueno, good morning to everyone, Minister Desmond. Para Medellín es primero muy inspirador estar acá con todas estas ciudades y hacer parte de la red, y tenemos un reto muy grande, y es después de haber ganado el premio Lee Kuan Yew en el 2016, cómo las ciudades siguen avanzando. Yo entiendo que hay una presentación y mientras la ponen yo voy a ir hablando, y yo ayer hablaba un poco en la plenaria de cómo pasar de ser la ciudad más violenta del mundo en 1991 a ser hoy una ciudad que tiene la tasa más baja de homicidios de los últimos 40 años, muy por debajo de muchas ciudades, inclusive de Estados Unidos. Fuimos una ciudad estigmatizada por la violencia, pero lo que hemos sido es víctimas de la mafia. En los años 80, en los peores años de la violencia, un alcalde llamado Edward Koch, un alcalde de Nueva York, propuso que la solución para acabar con el narcotráfico era bombardear a Medellín, o sea, acabar con toda una sociedad, que no era una sociedad mafiosa, sino por el contrario, una sociedad víctima de la mafia. Y hemos salido adelante a punta de muchos esfuerzos, entre todos, como ciudad, como país, y haciendo un esfuerzo fundamental. Yo estoy convencido en los cambios físicos, estoy convencido en las luchas sociales, estoy convencido que podemos transformarnos alrededor de la sostenibilidad, de lo ambiental. Para eso necesitamos recursos y para eso necesitamos buenas ideas, muchas de ellas tomadas también de esta red de ciudades. Y por eso lo venimos haciendo a través de los corredores verdes, donde queremos que la ciudad del 2030 tenga más verde, y donde podamos en esas zonas disminuir la temperatura entre 2 y 4 grados centígrados y adaptarnos también frente a temas como el cambio climático. Sustituir las vías por donde pasan vehículos por espacios públicos donde la gente pueda compartir el día a día, porque lo más importante y el reto más grande que tenemos quienes gobernamos las ciudades son nuestra gente, nos debemos a la gente y por eso tenemos talento. Si Medellín fuera considerado como país, de acuerdo a sus artistas, seríamos el 5º país con mayor reproducciones en Spotify, gracias al talento que tenemos de nuestros artistas, como ya lo he mencionado, como Karol G, como Juanes, como Maluma, como J Balvin, y por eso le apuntamos a una ciudad que le apueste al entretenimiento como una de las opciones más importantes alrededor de la gente, de nuestros jóvenes, de nuestro talento, y eso es lo que queremos hacer con Distrito Cinema, dedicado a la música, dedicado al arte, dedicado a los audiovisuales, donde hay una gran oportunidad. Lo mismo todo lo que tiene que ver con innovación, ciencia y tecnología. Apostamos hoy con 2.4 puntos del PIB en innovación, ciencia y tecnología. Queremos llegar al 4 en los próximos años. El mes entrante estará llegando a Medellín el Centro para la Cuarta Revolución Industrial con el World Economic Forum y tenemos como meta que Medellín sea la capital de la inteligencia artificial para América Latina. Y por eso quiero invitarlos a que vayan, inviertan a Medellín y vamos a trabajar con nuestra red, con Singapur y lo vamos a hacer muy bien. Pero yo quisiera hacer una reflexión final. Los cambios que necesitan nuestras ciudades se logran a través de transformaciones físicas, transformaciones urbanas, adaptación al cambio climático, la mitigación, eso es cierto. Para eso necesitamos recursos, buenas ideas y buenos diseños y tierras para poder ejecutar la vivienda y los grandes temas de ciudad. Pero necesitamos sobre todo a nuestra ciudadanía, sobre todo necesitamos un gran cambio cultural. Y por eso al creer en nuestra gente, estamos convencidos que primero tenemos que cambiar los comportamientos y por eso la cultura ciudadana juega un papel fundamental. Sancionamos al que hace las cosas mal, pero no premiamos al que las hace bien, que es la gran mayoría. En esa estrategia de cultura ciudadana, hicimos una encuesta en las zonas donde la gente dice sentir más desconfianza frente al otro, porque la base de la transformación ciudadana es la confianza. Si no hay confianza de la ciudadanía entre ellos y entre sus gobernantes, es imposible las grandes transformaciones, son imposibles. Y por eso le apostamos a la cultura ciudadana y pongo algunos ejemplos. Hicimos una encuesta ciudadana de dónde eran los sitios donde la gente decida desconfiar más del otro y en esos sitios instalamos unas tiendas que hemos llamado las tiendas de la confianza, unos espacios donde ponemos unos productos que compra la gente del día a día, donde nadie las cuida, donde no hay policía, donde nadie las está grabando ni las está vigilando. Ponemos el valor de cada producto, la gente lo toma, está la plata, el dinero está ahí, la gente sabe que tiene que pagar un precio, la misma gente lo toma, paga o devuelve lo que le corresponde y lo instalamos en 500 sitios de la ciudad y el porcentaje de cumplimiento de pago sin que nadie lo estuviera mirando llegó al 86, al 96% en los primeros meses. Eso es confianza y cultura ciudadana. Tenemos los sistemas de vigilancia a través de lo que llaman las fotomultas o los radares que miran la velocidad de los vehículos. Entonces, claro, a la gente le llega cuando comete una infracción de tránsito. Pero lo que hicimos fue al contrario, instalar también unos equipos de la alcaldía donde veía buenos comportamientos. Una persona que para en la cebra y le da paso al otro ciudadano, o el que parquea donde debe ser y no infringe la norma, y a su casa le llega algo que detectamos como la fotoculta, donde lo felicitábamos y donde le decíamos que ese comportamiento contribuía a una mejor ciudad. Es resaltar las acciones positivas. Lo mismo hicimos con el bus de la confianza, en una zona de la ciudad donde no se le cobraba el bus y la gente pagaba lo que correspondía. Porcentaje de cumplimiento, el 100%. Yo quiero terminar simplemente diciendo que podemos transformar nuestras ciudades si hacemos grandes cambios culturales y si trabajamos alrededor de la cultura ciudadana. Y lo hemos demostrado en la ciudad que era considerada la más violenta del mundo, la que en algún momento creyeron que para solucionar los problemas del narcotráfico había que bombardearnos como sociedad. Nos venimos transformando y lo vamos a hacer mucho mejor. Gracias.
With that story, I think we can all feel very optimistic that if there's any road to break down, we can change it to a road of breakthrough. And it was a revolution that needed from violence to a creative city, a violent city to a creative city without the use of violence. And it is through the changing of the human spirit and the human culture. And I just thought that was such a story to inspire us, and I hope that is something that all of us would take as we face struggles in the future. So thank you, Mayor. Our fourth speaker, President of the Provincial Parliament of Vienna. Now, Vienna was the 2002 Lee Kuan Yew Prize laureate for reinventing itself for the 21st century without losing its identity as a capital of culture, music, and history. What did you do?
Good morning, dear colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my particular honor to represent the city of Vienna at this extraordinary event. Yesterday, during my host presentation, I gave a short overview of urban politics in Vienna. Today, on this opening panel, I want to present hard facts and clarify our position within the Federal Republic of Austria. I will also discuss our budget and outline our key priorities. First, I would like to show you this map. As you can see, the red circle highlights Vienna's location in the heart of Europe. By train, we are just 4 hours from Prague and Munich and 3 hours from Budapest. From Vienna, you can reach by plane every city in Europe within 3 hours. Vienna, with its 2 million inhabitants, is the 5th biggest city in the European Union and serves at the same as the capital of Austria. Additionally, we function both as a city and as a province. Being a city, a province, and a capital in one grants us significant legislative scope of action. We have the authority to draft our own laws without the need for extensive negotiations with other parties. We also maintain a strong relationship with a greater suburban area, collaborating in over-regional traffic planning and managing our Viennese airport. Now, let's turn to financial matters. In Austria, only the federal government has the authority to impose taxes. Consequently, every 4 to 6 years, the 9 Austrian provinces negotiate a new distribution key for the federal government. In addition, we get funded by commercial and communal taxes and duties for public infrastructure in Vienna. For 2024, Vienna has assessed an annual budget of 20 billion euros. Our priorities are healthcare and social service, education and childcare. And we also spend between 400 to 500 million euro each year for housing, especially for social housing. You see, and our principle is, we leave nobody behind. Vienna is a dynamically growing city. Just in the past 30 years, we have grown by 500,000 of people. Climate change is making our summers hotter and our weather is more extreme. Despite these challenges, we continue to maintain a high quality of life for our residents. We have been awarded the most livable city in the world for 15 years running. In our view, the key of our success is that the public ownership of our public infrastructure. Vienna is a very green city with over 50% of green spaces. And in our new urban development areas, we make sure that there are always enough accessible parks and recreational spaces. Clean water is also very important for us. Since the 19th century, an aqueduct brings fresh, highly quality water into the city directly from the mountains, the Alps, covering 100% of our water supply. But we don't just focus on fresh water. We also pay a lot of attention to wastewater management. In this picture, you can see our main sewage treatment plant. We clean the wastewater and use the sewage sludge to produce clean energy and heating for over 50,000 households. In conclusion, our constant and direct contact with the population allows us to immediately understand what works well and what needs improvement. In local politics, we act as a barometer of public opinion, equipped with substantial know-how and experience. The close connection with our residents, combined with our extensive infrastructure and independent capabilities, enables us to effectively navigate and adapt to the multiple crises we face. Through our dedicated efforts, we continue to ensure a high quality of life for the people of Vienna. And I once again would like to invite you to the World City Summit Mayors Forum next year to Vienna. You're very much welcome. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Yeah. We look forward to next year. Yeah. Now, our next speaker is Professor Lily Kong. Now, Lily, you were the first women president of any university in Singapore. So I'm going to challenge you to talk about the role of university leadership in three different ways. One is, how do you collaborate with corporate and policy leaders? Secondly, the importance of research. We've heard that this morning in our opening speeches by our Deputy Prime Minister and our Minister, and how it's so important to convert research into to able to translate it into evidence-based action. And finally, a university is nothing if it's not a teaching institution. So the importance of interdisciplinary learning is so important in building the talent pipeline for the future. It's all yours.
Yes. A very good morning to everyone. And as I said yesterday in my intervention at the Mayors Forum, I am a firm believer in the collaborations between academia, industry, and government. And so I'm delighted to be part of this panel where these three sectors are precisely represented. I had intended to say something about Singapore because I did not want to assume that people understood or knew the context of Singapore, and I will still do that. And in the midst of that commentary on Singapore and its development, I will make reference to some of the questions that Nolene, the chair, has asked of me. Singapore, as you've already heard, is a tiny place. It's a city, an island, and a country all at the same time. And I, as a geographer, like to play with maps. So if you look at the map of Singapore right here, what I've done is to superimpose on it the cities that are represented by the speakers on stage, so you can get a sense of how large or how small Singapore is, right? And so very quickly, as I go through it, you will see that many of the cities and Singapore are actually not that much difference in size. In fact, Nairobi is larger than Singapore. Now, that smallness has advantages, and I'll come back to that in a moment, but it also has challenges. In the midst of this small city-state island, basically what we have is a whole lot of socio-cultural diversity. And that's manifested in different ways, different ethnicities, different religions, different socioeconomic classes, different demographics that have emerged over time. And that diversity, or super diversity as we come to call it, because of the greater migration that has come into Singapore over the years, is a real positive. There is a great deal of creativity and vibrancy and interaction. But that super diversity also poses a host of challenges. Living cheek by jowl with people with different cultures, different practices, different mores and social norms creates challenges. Now, at the same time, those sociocultural positivities and challenges are matched by spatial challenges and opportunities. The smallness means that we have a very simple, it's not as complex as when cities are immersed or embedded in countries where you have the municipal level, the provincial level, the federal level, and planning and policy making is complicated by the different levels and perhaps even more complicated when there are different political parties represented at different levels. In Singapore, we don't have that complexity, and therefore we have the opportunity to plan long term, and we have the opportunity to be able to think cohesively. Now that's a real advantage. But the challenge and the potential downside of that is groupthink. Because we're all thinking at one level, we're all thinking, from one political party pretty much. And what that means is that there is a danger of us thinking that we have the solutions from one perspective. And this is where I think it is so important for city leaders, therefore, in the context of Singapore, to be working with the private sector, to be working with academia, to open up the possibilities of ideas from different sectors so that we might be able to bring to bear on a particular challenge, whether it's to create a smart city, a creative city, a sustainable city, that there are different ideas that are brought to bear on the making of the city. Over the years, we have focused very much on supporting economic needs, responding to sustainability imperatives, and addressing livability, lovability, and inclusivity objectives. To do that, we have done various things. In economic growth, we've tried to create, beg your pardon, we've tried to create a city which has space for different types of activities. In the early days, when it was very much about industrialization and manufacturing, it was about being bold and turning swarms in the western part of the island and Jurong into a Jurong industrial district. That entailed an extremely bold and technologically sound approach to things. But over the years, we have moved from manufacturing into being, actually the fourth industrial revolution now. And so a lot of what we do requires things like data centers, requires different kinds of infrastructures. And in order to facilitate all of that on a tiny island, Singapore, we've actually gone underground. And so different technologies have come into play. And the research that goes behind that into building underground, not just technologically sound and technically feasible, but also thinking in terms of psychological needs of human beings who find themselves living or working underground without seeing sunlight. And so this is where research comes in multidisciplinary ways, and how important it is that we're not just looking at it from a technical perspective, but also looking at it from a human-centric perspective. I'm going to cite just another example because my time is up. If you look at the population growth and the super diversity that now characterizes Singapore, again, in the old days when we were building public housing, those of you who visited HDB estates, including Kampong Admiralty yesterday, you will see something that is actually quite different from the early housing estates in Singapore, where what we had was slab blocks upon slab blocks of houses. In order to create community in that kind of environment, sociological research suggested that if you want to build community, you don't want more than 6 household units in one section of a public housing block in order that the interactions are possible at a human scale, and therefore building community is more possible. Now, of course, we've moved beyond that now, and research shows that you can actually build community beyond a 6 household corner, and you can actually build community with precincts, neighborhoods, and so forth. So the different scales of neighborhood building. And a lot of that doesn't come about because we guess at it. It comes about with research that goes on, including sociological research, as I've demonstrated. In super diversity, where you have multiple ethnic groups that are living cheek by jowl, how do you ensure that there are not ghettos that are forming of different ethnic groups just mixing with themselves and leading potentially to a sort of ghettoization of society? And there again, Singapore has introduced policy, housing policy, which ensures that within each housing estate, indeed within each block in a housing estate, you have different ethnic groups that are represented in ways that reflect the national profile as such. And how do you begin to think about policy like that? Research is very much the basis of that. At the end of the day, research from universities is, I think, an important partner to policy making. At the same time, preparing young people to be the future city leaders entails that, as I've mentioned, they are exposed to interdisciplinary learning so that they can become the city leaders who are not siloed in their thinking, whether technically, technologically, or sociologically and humanistically. And so at Singapore Management University, we've tried to introduce new programs that very intentionally bring together not just multiple perspectives, but integrative perspectives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lily. The importance of design, but in such a way that it actually enhances our humanity. And how do we actually create the sense of human well-being? So it is with great joy that I now go to our last presenter. And Mr. Chow will talk to us a little bit about how the digital technology and the AI are in fact changing the way we design and build cities. But before your presentation, Mr. Chow, may I also challenge you to tell us that whilst you're doing that, how do you ensure that the development of livable and sustainable city for the future is done without losing the heartbeat and the soul of communities?
Thank you, Nolene. It's always the most difficult to speak at the last, right? And my colleague, fellow panelists, cover a lot of issues. And I'm very happy to be here on behalf of SJ. SJ is the built environment designer engineers around the world. We have 16,000 people and in 49 cities, and we work with both public sectors and private sectors. And today I'm gonna just use 3 projects, you may say case studies, to demonstrate how we rejuvenate, reinvent, and reimagine our future cities and demonstrate our commitment to a regenerative future. We talk a lot about waters. The first project is what we are working on or finished in South Sudan. And then this is the city called Juba. And then that's the capital of South Sudan. And about 336 square kilometers. 2017, the record is about 500,000 populations, but actually the internal disbursements add another 1 million or more citizens or peoples in that city. So the city reaching to about 2 million citizens, but actually only 7.8% of the population has the access to the piped water. And then so we engineered the construction of water treatment plant and also 45 kilometers of distribution, water distribution lines. So surprisingly, this entire project only costs US dollars, 16 million US dollars. So with this amount of water through a proper and sustainable engineering and design, really completely transformed the entire city. And it's not only social, economical, but the change people's lifestyle. The next one is the project we're working on currently right now for the Sarawak. Sarawak is the largest province in Malaysia with 125 square kilometers and close to 3 million populations. The vision is to set Sarawak to be a leader in the sustainability and then also the economic resilience. So we're working for Invest Sarawak and then really to transform the 5 industrial clusters into green hubs and then tapping Sarawak's natural resources sustainably, you know. And then the other thing is very important to train and upscaling the local talents in how to work with the renewable energies. And then I think this effort will create a very, very long impact for Sarawak's economics development. It's really helped to drive the economic diversification and energy securities. The third projects I'm talking about, Reimagine, that's a new city scale. And then everybody understand right now, one of the fastest growing urban environment is in Africa. In Middle East and then Saudi Arabia. So this is a project we're working with the city of Neom for the Oxagon, a new city close to 50 square kilometers. The project is about 33 billion investments, and it will be completed by 2030. And then that project will really create about 70,000 jobs for the 90,000 populations. And then because it's the waterfront cities and how to build the new approach for sustainability with the clean energies, that's the goal for will be 100% powered by clean energies, and then really build a waterfront friendly environment, and then to a lot of pedestrian, a lot of the open space, a lot of waterfront place, and to create a very high standard future city visions. So as I said, I think it's nice to be here, and then those three projects, if you're interested, because the time is very short, I would like to discuss with you later. But the idea is really how to, through these meaningful, impactful projects, we rejuvenate our communities, reinvent our urban development strategies, and then most importantly, reimagine the future. So let's continue to learn from each other, to collaborate, to build a regenerative future together. Thank you.
This conversation can last for hours, but we don't have much time left. So I'm just going to ask each of the panelists, maybe in 1 to 2 minutes, to share with us certain thoughts. So with the two ministers, how do you actually deal with national, local governance? Because at the end of the day, what really needs to happen with the ground-up initiatives that makes a difference to people's lives. So, Minister Linggi, may I ask you maybe to reflect a little bit on what Sean has said in Sarawak. How do you actually do 1 minute, though you only have 1 minute, which is a challenge, to just share with us an example of national, local governance?
Yeah, I almost expect that I will be asked on Sarawak. I come from Sarawak, right? Yeah, I'll just speak on what was mentioned. Of course, Sarawak is I think is an exciting province in, well, we call a region in Malaysia where indeed, as many would know, that we are focusing on renewable energy and green. And rightly, because we have the necessary resources over there, we have big rivers for hydro dam projects, and we also have, still have very much the jungles and the forests where everything can be green, especially, and we also have gas and oil as well. So in the whole ecosystem of renewable energy, yes, Sarawak has such great potentials, and I think many know that now Singapore and Sarawak have a great chemistry in trying to get going forward together in various aspects of the industrialization, especially on energy.
Thank you.
Now back to the governance. In Malaysia, of course, we have multi-tier. We have the federal government, the state government, and also the local councils. That's why sometimes, maybe this is also common in some other Commonwealth countries as well. But I think, it has its strength, but of course, there are also difficulties when we have to deal with trying to get to an agreement on certain aspect because of perhaps the three levels may have different priorities and needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll now move to Cabinet Secretary. And maybe, again, the whole linkage between national and local governance. Maybe the example of social housing seems very interesting.
Let me say that first, Kenya is a devolved government. That means we have both national government and county governments. Both governments, of course, have different structures of governance. But generally, we are all bound by one constitution as a country. And therefore, principles of governance, transparency, accountability, responsibility, financial systems are the same. And therefore, we are able to help each other that way. The division of revenue is between both the county government and the national government. Twice, you divide our revenue into two through revenue division of revenue law that we do every year. Between my ministry, for example, because I am in charge of urban development, the urban areas in the rural centers where the counties are and their governments are, we have to relate because I allow them to have the charters. And therefore, in terms of governance and funding, when we fundraise and resource mobilize together, we do it together because they must participate, because we are guided by their needs. However, we have, in terms of governance, we have agreed that the instruments that will govern the application of the funding, the conditionalities that we set together will be, the drawing of monies will be subject to agreed minimum governance conditions that will be met. So therefore, in terms of governance, then we are having to agree what is the basic accountability system, what is the basic governance system that we put in, capacity building. So I think that way then we help each other to set up new urban areas with the new rejuvenation.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So from national local governance, we are going to move now to participatory governance. And I would like to ask Mayor Federico, how did you bring about this social innovation in such a way that you created a sense of deep community and the social spaces and the bonds that drew diverse people together to build trust, because you mentioned the importance of building trust and a trust in a collective future that they can all contribute to.
La innovación social en Medellín se ha visto representada de diferentes formas, a través, por ejemplo, de los sistemas de transporte. Fuimos la primera ciudad en el mundo en utilizar los sistemas de cable, como lo que se utiliza en los centros de esquí alrededor del mundo, para movilizar personas, entendiendo que somos una zona que está rodeada por montañas, donde la gran parte de nuestra población con mayores necesidades vive en zonas de ladera, zonas de alto riesgo, y fuimos llegando con sistemas como metrocables. Pero hay algo fundamental, y yo vuelvo, insisto, en la participación ciudadana. Tenemos una forma de acercarnos a nuestras comunidades que es algo que se llama el presupuesto participativo, que existe en muchos países, en muchas ciudades del mundo, de la cual el 8% del presupuesto de inversión lo definen las comunidades en sus barrios, en sus comunas, juntándose, trabajando juntos y definiendo prioridades por la educación, por el medio ambiente, por el arte, por la cultura. Y es muy importante entender que hemos podido lograr tejido social, que hemos logrado recomponer una confianza que lo que hizo la violencia en su peor momento fue romper, y que lo que hemos logrado como sociedad lo hemos logrado juntos. No solo el gobierno, un gobierno solo no logra nada, necesitamos a nuestra gente. Y algo fundamental que mencionaba ahorita la presidenta de la universidad, que me parece fundamental, y es el trabajo articulado entre el sector productivo, las universidades, el gobierno y la sociedad civil. Eso es algo que caracterizó en gran medida cómo Medellín pudo superar los peores momentos de violencia y cómo ha sido una ciudad resiliente y cómo aplica la innovación social de manera permanente en sus territorios, generando confianza.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, we'll move to the president of the provincial parliament of Vienna, and maybe to share with us, how did you do this holistic planning? Because that is absolutely impressive. And how do you get the financing? How do you convince private sector to invest?
Yes, Vienna has the good situation that we are a city, a capital, and a province in once. And so we get also money from the federal state. So we have enough money to finance all our public duties. And I think it's necessary to have all requirements to act in politics. And so maybe the success of Vienna is that nearly 100% of the public infrastructure is owned by the city. And so we can act as ourselves. And this for more than 100 years in a row. And we have a great stability also in the mayor's position, so that we can run a long time period to fulfill our politics. And so the main issues of our politics are financing, but especially housing, public transportation, water supply, wastewater management, health service, also social service is owned by the city. And therefore we have a strong position to act in our politics. And we have also the good situation that we get the necessary money from the federal state. And also we can have some income for our city-owned infrastructure. And so this is maybe the reason why we are so successful in our politics and city. And I would like to thank one more for the exchange in this panel, but we are representing here cities and countries from 4 continents of our world, and this shows how important this event is.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. We'll move on with that theme again, Lily, because you talked about breaking and changing mindsets. And in order to actually even harness the financial resources, you need to work with the private sector, not just for their ideas, but also for their resources, financial resources. And how have you done that as a university leader?
So one of the schemes in Singapore that I think has been quite successful, and we look to adopt it, is what is called the Corp Lab, and basically government together with private sector together with academia comes together in the establishment of laboratories to study particular issues, particular areas. So for example, we had one where we were working with Fujitsu together with the National Research Foundation, A-Star, and our university, and we were interested in addressing issues to do with technology, smart technologies in the home. Private sector comes in with resources to support the research, also the research questions, also the research expertise within private sector. Government comes in with some resources, the infrastructure, the framing, as well as to be able to say, these are the pressing issues that Singapore faces. How can this corporate lab, this Corp Lab as we call it, contribute to it, to contribute answers to it, solutions to it? And of course, in academia, then you have the ideas, the research questions, the deep research that hopefully goes beyond an immediate short fix, but brings perspectives for longer term solutioning as such. So the virtuous collaboration between public sector, private sector, and academic sector can have very positive salubris effects.
Thank you, Lily. For our last panelist, I wanted you to reflect, Sean, if, how do you use intercity networks, in other words, transnational networks, to both learn, so it's about shared learning, but also shared decision-making to promote some of the world's most livable, what are some of the features of some of the world's most livable and dynamic cities for communities, and including the use of AI to help with that?
That's a lot of questions combined to one. And then Thank you again. I think, first of all, I think for the digital technology and AI, it's particularly the digital technology is already happening in many, many cities around the world, collect data and then also use data to make smart or scientific decisions, like for traffic, for the energy efficiencies, for the how to maintenance.
Okay,
I think the other
we'll
thing
come
is
to
very important.
Yeah, okay,
is,
1 minute.
I think more people going to be use AI for the this kind of a very revolutionizing the process for urban development. I think less city right now using AI, but I think the AI is coming in a very, very fast speed, and you can inform the better urban planning decisions. You can better allocate your resources, and you can enhance the service for the cities. But in terms of the knowledge sharing, I think it's really how to build the a platform, so everybody can share their data, and then also through the promotions, and then also engaging the citizens to better learn from each other. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We've now come to the close of our opening plenary, but I would just leave you with 3 messages that have come out from our discussions and presentation. And they are, first of all, to promote a sense of community, the soul and the heartbeat of cities, focusing on how people can interact positively with one another. And secondly, I think a second message that came out is that inclusive and collaborative governance can overturn even the most difficult circumstances. And finally, I think the closing message is to focus on building locally embedded processes of participatory governance and globally connected leadership and networks for shared learning to collectively rejuvenate, reinvent, and reimagine cities, but cities as interdependent, dynamic ecosystems for humanity to live in peace, safety, and sustainable future where both people and our planet can flourish together. So, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, in our hands rests the stewardship of this future for our children and their children. I thank you, and I thank the panelists for this opening session.
Thank you. Thank you to our moderator and our panelists for their very inspiring and insightful discussion. Another round of applause for them, shall we? Thank you. We appreciate your sharing very much. Now we'd like to invite you to return to your seats and have a rest. But meanwhile, I'd like to invite Professor Lily Kong to remain on stage for the next segment of the opening plenary. Thank you. So, Professor Lily Kong, we'd like you to remain here on stage to join us for the next segment. And the rest of our esteemed panel, no, thank you very much. You may now return to your seats. Thank you. Thank you so much. The next segment of our opening plenary is the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between Singapore Management University and the Centre for Liveable Cities, Singapore. And on stage, we have with us from Centre for Liveable Cities, the Executive Director, Mr. Hugh Lim. Round of applause for him. And also, you've already met her and heard from her. We have Professor Lily Kong, President of Singapore Management University. This morning, they will be signing a MOU, and you may proceed whenever you're ready. The CLC SMU MOU seeks to establish deeper collaborations for capability building in rejuvenating aging infrastructure, preparing for a low-carbon transition, the future of work, and the science of cities, which includes the application of future methodologies and social and behavioral science methods in the context of urban planning and governance. Thank you very much, Professor Liddy and Mr. Hugh Lim. Let's take a picture together to mark this momentous occasion, the signing of the MOU between Centre for Livable Cities and Singapore Management University. Thank you. It is an honor for us to witness the signing of this momentous occasion. Thank you very much. You may now return to your seats, both Mr. Hugh Lim and Professor Lily Kong. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the opening plenary. We will now have a short tea break. And following this, we have two exciting plenaries for you to attend, both starting at 11:15 a.m. They are the Cities for People Plenary 1 in Hall 404A and the Resilient and Regenerative Cities Plenary 1 at Hall 405B. Now, for those who require simultaneous interpretation in Mandarin for the Cities for People Plenary 1, please bring along your headsets to 404A. 如果您需要中英文的同步翻译，请把您的耳机带到404A 的大堂。如果您需要中英文的同步翻译，请把你们桌上的那个耳机带到404A 的大堂。谢谢。Well, for more information on the sessions for today and tomorrow, please download the World Cities Summit event app if you haven't already done so, or refer to the screens for the lineup of enriching dialogue sessions planned. Thank you once again for joining us this morning, and we wish you a fruitful day ahead. Thank you.